The sound of gunfire erupted from the saloon as Preston Calloway rode into the dusty town of Bitter Creek, Arizona Territory, in the scorching summer of 1878. He paid it little mind. Trouble was as common as tumbleweed in these parts. What did catch his attention, however, was the crowd gathered at the edge of town, their angry voices carrying on the hot desert wind. Preston pulled his horse to a stop, adjusting his worn Stetson as he squinted against the sun. A tall man with shoulders broadened by years of ranch work and a face weathered by the elements. He was not one to involve himself in other people's business. Yet something about the scene before him, a circle of agitated townsfolk closing in on what appeared to be a lone figure, stirred his sense of justice. "Witch," someone shouted, the word cutting through the air like a knife. "She brought the drought, the Henderson boys' fever too." Preston dismounted, tying his horse to a nearby post before approaching the crowd. As he drew closer, he caught sight of the figure at the center of their wrath, a woman with wild copper hair, her dress torn and dirty, clutching a small leather satchel to her chest, as if it contained her very soul. "Stand aside," Preston called, his deep voice commanding enough respect that several people turned. "What's happening here?" "None of your concern, stranger," a portly man with a shopkeeper's apron said. "This woman's a witch, came to town 3 weeks ago, and nothing's been right since. Crops failing, water drying up, sickness spreading." Preston looked past him to the woman. Her eyes, green as spring grass, met his with neither fear nor pleading, only a quiet dignity that seemed out of place amidst the hostility surrounding her. "That so?" Preston asked, stepping closer. "And what's your evidence?" "Evidence?" a woman with a severe bun scoffed. "She lives alone in old man Mercer's abandoned cabin, gathers strange herbs, speaks to herself. Folk have seen lights in the woods at night where she walks. Sheriff's gone to Tucson," the shopkeeper added. "We're handling this ourselves." Preston had seen this before, fear turning ordinary people into monsters. He'd fought in the war, seen the worst of humanity, and had no stomach for watching it unfold again. "She's my wife," he declared suddenly, the words falling from his lips before he'd fully formed the thought. "So be careful how you speak of her." A stunned silence fell over the crowd. The woman's eyes widened slightly, but she was quick-witted enough not to contradict him. "Your wife." The shopkeeper sputtered. "We ain't seen you before." "Preston Calloway," he introduced himself, moving forward to stand beside the woman. "Just purchased the old McAllister Ranch north of here. My wife Dahlia arrived ahead of me while I finished business in Colorado." He placed a protective arm around her shoulders. "Seems she's received quite the welcome." The woman Dahlia, as he'd spontaneously named her, relaxed almost imperceptibly against him. "I told them, Preston," she said softly, playing along with remarkable composure, "but they wouldn't listen." Preston faced the crowd, his hand casually resting near his holster. "Now, I understand there's been some trouble in town, but accusing my wife of witchcraft, that's not the neighborly greeting I expected." The crowd shifted uncomfortably, some looking embarrassed, others suspicious. "If you'll excuse us," Preston continued, "my wife looks tired. We'll be heading home now." He turned to Dahlia. "Your horse nearby, darlin'." "They frightened it away," she answered, her voice steady despite the circumstances. Preston nodded, leading her toward his own horse. "Then we'll share mine. Come along." As he helped her mount before swinging up behind her, whispers circulated through the dispersing crowd. Preston ignored them, guiding his horse out of town at a measured pace, not so fast as to suggest guilt, but quick enough to escape any who might reconsider their retreat. They rode in silence for nearly a mile before Dahlia spoke. "Why did you help me?" Preston considered the question. "Didn't much care for the odds. 1 woman against 20 townspeople isn't what I'd call a fair fight. And claiming me as your wife seemed the quickest way to diffuse things," he replied pragmatically. "People respect marriage bonds more than they respect a stranger's plea for reason." She was quiet a moment, then said, "I'm not a witch, Mr. Calloway. Didn't figure you were, Miss Davis, Dahlia Davis." She laughed softly. "At least you got that part right. Fortunate coincidence." He guided the horse around a bend in the trail. "So if you're not a witch, what are you doing that's got the good people of Bitter Creek so riled up?" "I'm a healer," she explained. I use herbs and remedies my grandmother taught me. I came here after hearing about the drought, thinking I might help. Some of the children were showing signs of sickness from bad water. And you fixed them up, I tried. Some got better, others. She sighed. People want someone to blame when things go wrong. They crested a hill and Preston pointed to a weathered but substantial ranch house in the distance. That's my place, the McAllister Ranch, though I reckon it's the Calloway Ranch now. You weren't lying about that part. No, madam, bought it fair and square last month. As they approached the ranch, Dahlia observed the sturdy main house, a large barn, and several outbuildings. It was a proper working ranch, though clearly in need of attention after sitting vacant. You can stay here tonight, Preston offered as he helped her down from the horse. Spare room's clean enough. Tomorrow we can figure out what to do about your situation. Dahlia looked up at him, studying his face in the fading light. He was handsome in a rugged way, with honest blue eyes and a jawline shadowed by stubble. Why would you take such a risk for a stranger? Preston unsaddled his horse, considering her question. War showed me what happens when good people do nothing. He glanced at her. Besides, I've got plenty of space here, and from the looks of it, you could use a safe place to rest. Inside, the ranch house was sparsely furnished but clean. Preston lit several lamps and showed Dahlia to a small bedroom. It's not much, he apologized. It's perfect, she assured him, setting down her satchel. Thank you. Over a simple supper of beans, jerky, and coffee, they exchanged stories. Preston had fought for the Union, returned to find his parents' small Colorado farm sold to cover debts, and spent years working cattle drives before saving enough to buy his own place. Dahlia had grown up in Pennsylvania, the daughter of a doctor who'd encouraged her interest in medicine, though society frowned upon female physicians. After her parents died in a fire, she traveled west, using her knowledge to help where she could. People don't always take kindly to women practicing medicine, she explained. Especially when I use traditional remedies alongside modern techniques, it makes them suspicious. Folks fear what they don't understand, Preston agreed, and fear makes people dangerous. The next morning, Preston rode into town alone, returning with supplies and Dahlia's belongings from the cabin she'd been staying in. Town's still buzzing with talk, he reported. Some believe my story, others don't. Sheriff's due back in a few days. I should probably move on, Dahlia said, though the thought brought unexpected disappointment. Or, Preston suggested, you could stay on as my housekeeper. Temporarily, he added quickly. Give folks time to settle down. I could use the help getting this place in order, and you'd have a roof over your head. Dahlia considered the offer. She'd been running for so long from suspicion, from loneliness, from her own past. Perhaps it was time to stand her ground. All right, Mr. Calloway, I accept. Preston, he corrected with a small smile, if we're to convince people you're my wife, you should at least use my given name. The days fell into a comfortable rhythm. Dahlia proved skilled not just with herbs, but with cooking and housekeeping. Preston worked from dawn till dusk, mending fences, tending to the small herd of cattle he'd purchased, and fixing the weathered buildings. In the evenings, they would sit on the porch, watching the sunset paint the desert in gold and crimson. They maintained separate sleeping quarters, with Preston insisting Dahlia take the main bedroom while he used the smaller room off the kitchen. Despite the pretense of marriage, he was unfailingly respectful of her privacy and independence. A week after Dahlia's arrival, Preston returned from town with news. Sheriff's back, says he's willing to let the matter drop if there's no more trouble. He hesitated, but he also made it clear he doesn't fully believe our story. What did you tell him? Dahlia asked. That we married in Denver before coming here. Preston removed his hat, running a hand through his dark hair. Said I had the papers to prove it, but they're packed away. Bought us some time, at least. Dahlia nodded, feeling a strange mixture of relief and something less definable. The charade of being Preston's wife had begun to feel less like a deception and more like a possibility she'd never allowed herself to consider. As summer progressed into autumn, their arrangement continued. Preston found in Dahlia not just a capable housekeeper, but a partner who shared his vision for the ranch. She established a garden that flourished despite the harsh conditions, introduced chickens and goats, and even helped with cattle when hands were short. Slowly, cautiously, the townsfolk began to accept Dahlia's presence. When the blacksmith's young daughter fell ill with fever, it was Dahlia who stayed up 3 nights, applying cool compresses and herbal remedies until the crisis passed. The child's recovery did much to change people's perceptions, and soon others sought out Dahlia's healing skills. Preston observed these changes with quiet pride. "They're starting to see what I saw," he told her one evening as they sat by the fire. "And what was that?" Dahlia asked. "A woman of uncommon courage," he answered simply. "Someone who helps others even when they've shown her nothing but unkindness." Their eyes met across the warm glow of the hearth, and something shifted between them, an acknowledgement of feelings that had been growing since that first day in Bitter Creek. The first snowfall came early that year. Preston and Dahlia worked side by side to ensure the ranch was prepared, moving cattle to sheltered pastures, stocking firewood, and preserving the last of the garden's harvest. The shared labor brought them closer, their hands occasionally brushing, lingering moments that neither acknowledged but both treasured. On a particularly cold night in late November, Preston returned from checking the herd to find Dahlia waiting with hot coffee and concern etched on her face. "I was worried," she admitted. "The storm's getting worse." "Nothing a Calloway can't handle," he assured her with a smile that warmed her more than the fire. That night, as the wind howled around the sturdy ranch house, Preston found himself unable to sleep. He rose, intending to add wood to the fire, and found Dahlia already there, wrapped in a quilt, staring into the flames. "Couldn't sleep either?" he asked, joining her. She shook her head. "I was thinking about the first day we met. How different my life might be if you hadn't ridden into town at that exact moment." "I've thought about that too," Preston admitted. "Seems like fate had a hand in it." "Do you believe in fate?" Dahlia asked softly. Preston considered the question. "I believe that sometimes life gives you exactly what you need, even if you didn't know you were looking for it." His eyes met hers. "I came to Arizona Territory looking for land for a home, found something more valuable." Dahlia's breath caught Preston. "I know our arrangement started as a necessity," he continued, his voice low and earnest. "But these past months, Dahlia, I can't imagine this place without you in it. Can't imagine my life without you. Are you asking me to stay on as your housekeeper?" She asked, though she knew that wasn't what he meant. "I'm asking if you might consider making our arrangement real." He took her hand gently. "I'm asking if you might consider being my wife in truth, not just in name." Dahlia's eyes glistened in the firelight. "You should know everything first. The reason people find it so easy to believe I'm a witch." She took a deep breath. "In Pennsylvania, there was a powerful man in the community. He tried to force himself on me. I fought back, used a tincture I'd made to render him unconscious. He lived, but claimed I'd tried to poison him, that I'd bewitched him." Preston's jaw tightened, but he didn't interrupt. "His influence meant no one believed me," she continued. "I fled west, but rumors have a way of following. Every town I've settled in, eventually something goes wrong, and eyes turn to the strange woman who keeps to herself. Is that why you never contradicted me when I called you my wife? You thought having a husband might protect you from such accusations." She nodded. "It was selfish, perhaps." "No," Preston said firmly. "It was survival, and you've more than earned your place here, Dahlia, not as someone under my protection, but as my equal." He squeezed her hand. "My question stands." Dahlia searched his face, finding only sincerity and affection. Slowly, she leaned forward and pressed her lips to their first kiss, gentle yet filled with promise. "Yes," she whispered against his mouth. "Yes, I'll be your wife." They were married 2 weeks later by the circuit preacher, with a small gathering of ranch hands and the more open-minded townsfolk as witnesses. The sheriff attended too, officially closing the matter of the witch incident and offering awkward but genuine congratulations. Winter settled over the ranch, but inside the Calloway home, warmth and happiness flourished. Preston and Dahlia shared not just a name and a bed now, but dreams for the future, expanding the ranch, perhaps starting a family and continuing Dahlia's healing work for those who needed it. Spring arrived with new calves, green grass pushing through the soil, and news from town that Bitter Creek would be getting its first proper doctor. To everyone's surprise, the young physician fresh from medical school in Boston sought out Dahlia, eager to learn about local plants and traditional remedies to complement his formal training. "Never thought I'd see the day," Preston remarked as they watched the young doctor ride away after an afternoon of intense discussion with Dahlia. From accused witch to respected healer in less than a year. "People can change," Dahlia said, leaning against her husband's strong shoulder. "Sometimes they just need someone to show them how." Preston wrapped his arm around her waist. "Speaking of change, noticed you've been feeling poorly in the mornings lately." Dahlia looked up at him, a smile spreading across her face. "I was wondering when you'd notice." I wanted to be certain before I said anything. Preston's eyes widened. "You mean?" She nodded, placing his hand over her still flat abdomen. "Come autumn, there'll be another Calloway at the ranch." Joy unlike anything Preston had ever known flooded through him. He lifted Dahlia in his arms, spinning her around as she laughed. "I love you," he declared, setting her gently back on her feet. "More than I ever thought possible." "And I love you," she replied, caressing his cheek. "My protector, my partner, my love." As the sun set over their land, painting the desert in the same golden hues as the day they'd first ridden here together, Preston and Dahlia Calloway stood entwined on their porch, no longer pretending, no longer afraid, just two souls who had found in each other the courage to build a life neither had dared to imagine. Word spread throughout the territory of the rancher who'd married the woman everyone had once called a witch. Some versions of the story painted Preston as a fool, others as her savior. The truth, as Dahlia and Preston knew, was far more complex and beautiful. They had saved each other, and in doing so, created something rare and precious in the harsh landscape of the West, a home built on respect, understanding, and love. 5 years later, the Calloway Ranch had grown into one of the most prosperous in the territory. Their daughter, Emma, with her father's blue eyes and her mother's copper hair, raced around the expanded house with her younger brother James toddling after her. Dahlia's garden had expanded into a proper greenhouse where she grew medicinal plants, supplying not just Bitter Creek's doctor but physicians across the territory. Preston, now a respected rancher and community leader, had helped establish a school in town and made sure the teacher knew that Dahlia's peculiar knowledge was to be respected, not feared. Together, they had transformed not just their own lives but the very fabric of the community that had once threatened to tear them apart. On their 5th wedding anniversary, as they sat on their porch watching their children play in the yard that had once been barren dirt, Preston took Dahlia's hand. "Ever regret it?" he asked, "staying here with me instead of moving on?" Dahlia looked at him, at the life they'd built together, at the love that had grown from a desperate deception into the most honest thing she'd ever known. "Not for a single moment," she answered, resting her head on his shoulder as the Arizona sunset bathed their home in golden light. "Some might call it witchcraft, the way you captured my heart, but I just call it love." Preston smiled, pressing a kiss to her forehead. "Then we're both enchanted, Mrs. Calloway, and I wouldn't have it any other way." In the years that followed, the story of Preston and Dahlia Calloway became something of a legend in the Arizona territory, how a brave cowboy took in a woman everyone thought was a witch, declared her his wife, and dared anyone to challenge him. But the real magic, as those who knew them understood, wasn't in any spell or potion. It was in the courage to stand against prejudice, the wisdom to see beyond fear, and the heart to love completely. And in that most human of magics, they found their happily ever after.